On today's show, my God, Padres, what are you doing, man?
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Tuesday, May 13th. As always, I'm your host of this podcast, Javier Reyes, the San Diego Padres fan from New Jersey. You can follow me on Twitter /X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, Javiipeno. Go reach out on there if you want me to answer any of your questions, comments, or concerns, and be featured potentially on the Monday mailbag. Folks, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel as well. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins, so go check that out. And today's episode, guys, we got a game to recap because a lot happened in it, and frankly, I think that it is... So there's a couple things. Number one, I recorded an episode ahead of time because if you haven't heard, I'm making a trip to San Diego this week with some friends, and I won't be able to immediately record, and I'll be landing on Thursday morning, so I won't have time to record. So I recorded an episode ahead of time, and it was the biggest surprises of the season so far. And I praised one Sir Robert Suarez, and I apologized for my preseason criticisms. Now, this episode today is to give you that. I recorded that yesterday, right? I recorded ahead of time. Wow. I mean, this is as bad of a moment that the Padres have had all season. Forget moment. This is easily their worst game, I think, and worst loss of the entire season. First, let's start with Michael King, right? Michael King, 5 2/3 in this one. 3 runs, only 2 earned on 4 hits, 2 walks, and 8 Ks. Decent start for our guy. It wasn't incredible. He did give up a home run to Zach Neto in the top of the 3rd inning, which is what gave the Angels the lead to start of 2-0. Really unfortunate. Zach Neto, not exactly a player that everybody knows the back of their baseball card or anything like that, but you know what? In fairness, he hasn't been a dreadful player this year. It's just kind of an unfortunate moment, really, for our guy, Michael King, who otherwise has been pretty incredible this year. Just as a reminder, even Pat post this game, still rocking an excellent ERA. He's 11th in Major League Baseball in ERA. And in terms of if you like going by wins above replacement for pitchers, me personally, I'm a little conflicted about that sometimes. But the Padres do have two guys in the top 25, which is really great. And one of them, Dylan Cease, in their rotation, I expect to at least get into the top 25 of that at some point, right? I don't think Tyler Mahle and Shane Smith are going to be better than these guys for much longer. But even still, Michael King making one mistake really in this game, but otherwise was pretty dang solid. He doesn't end up being able to finish the 5th inning, right? He only goes 5 2/3, so he wasn't eligible for a quality start for any of my fantasy baseball players who do quality starts. And then Jeremiah Estrada comes in, he gets 3 Ks. Monahan comes in and gets 1 out, which was great. He gets the 1 out needed and escapes, doesn't give up any runs. Jason Adams doesn't give up any runs. And, well, you guys, if you watch the game, know what happened after. But I want to talk a little bit more about the game in more detail. First of all, not the most dominant Michael King start, like I said, in general. Not a lot of whiffs in this one, but it was okay. He had 13 in total, 5 on his changeup, which was great. Always a great pitch by him. He looked fine. And I think that Michael King basically outside, it's kind of reminding me of last year in some ways, because basically outside that first start of the season that he had against it was the Braves, right? Against the Braves when he only went 2 2/3. He's basically been pretty money ever since then. He's just hasn't been able to go the distance in a lot of games. He only has 2 starts this year in which he's gone past 6 innings. One against the Yankees last week, even though he only got 1 strikeout and walked 2 guys. And then he did a complete game shutout against the Rockies, if you guys remember that one, which was great. Don't get me wrong. That's fantastic. But he has had a little bit of problem with getting deep into games. The strikeout stuff is great. I think the pitch repertoire is fine. He just hasn't gone deep into games yet, which is not a giant criticism, but it's just to remind you that it's been a little bit Blake Snelly at times for this year, where I'm wow, you're really up there at the pitch count already. I think he's just struggling a little bit with putting some batters away and letting them linger around a little bit longer than he would have liked. And against this Angels lineup, which admittedly is not terrible. I just told you Zach Neto, not that bad of a player. Don't get me wrong. He's fine. But they're not, they've got some guys in this lineup. They at least have some. I know that the offensive numbers on them aren't great, but they are sixth in home runs. And for a pitcher like Michael King, pitchers on the rest of this Padres team, it's possible that they're going to give up a couple hits that will really be big, right? With guys like Taylor Ward, guys like Jorge Soler in this lineup, that is totally expected, right? And I think that it just happened to not come at the right time. And I will say that we did get a really great kind of offensive game in a lot of ways. This was a great game. It had a lot of big moments. It felt right. One of my friends, in fact, the friend that I will be staying with in San Diego, he was at the game last night. He was close to behind home plate, and he was like, this is electric and whatnot. He actually texted me, fun fact, right before Tatis was up in this game, and he was like, man, I'd love to see like a Jackson Merrill bomb or and then he's sending me a picture of the Jack in the Box, because apparently Jack in the Box is in the stadium. I don't know if that's true. Someone, let me know if I'm wrong about that. But he was like, I'd love to see this. And then Tatis hit a home run. In terms of the rest of the runs in this game, Xander Bogaerts, once again, got to bring him up. 0 for 3 in this one. He does get an RBI. He gets some sac fly in this one in the bottom of the 8th, giving the Padres an extra run insurance heading into what was the absolute disaster of the 9th inning that we'll get to, believe me. Xander Bogaerts not driving in runs still when we need him to, and that's been a big problem. And someone actually asked me a question about this. My guy David Lamper actually reached out to me on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken. And he asked me, hey, I'm thinking Xander should bat 9th. He takes a lot of pitches, gets walks, can run, and with Tatis up behind him, he will get some fastballs. Okay. It's not the craziest idea I've ever heard. My only thing would be I just don't know, like, who you would replace him with, right? Like, I'm not exactly sure what you would do there. Padres, I do think, could be a team that makes a move at the deadline. Don't get me wrong. I could see a world in which they get a better left fielder. Brandon Lockridge, 1 for 3 in this game. He's not awful, but he's basically just a speed defense guy, which you could do worse, right? But he's just doesn't seem to be that type of guy. Although he did actually make some good contact on the ball last night. I will just bring that up. Like, he did make some decent contact. That was fine. I appreciate that. Brandon Lockridge, you good lad. Like, the double play he hit into. He hit 102.5 miles per hour, had 580 expected batting average. Like, he did get a little bit unlucky with that hit. But in general, Brandon Lockridge does not seem like the type of player that I think is going to stay on this team for a lot longer. Or at least, I don't think he's the future at this position. But outside that, where I don't know where you would put in Xander Bogaerts' spot, which is usually in the 5th spot. Who do you want to put there? Jay Cronenworth? Okay, I'm fine with that. But after that, it's Elias Diaz, Brandon Lockridge, maybe you have Tyler Ray depending on the day. I just don't know exactly who you're going to put there. Jason Hayward? Would you rather Jason Hayward bat 5th? While I like the idea of, like, let's put this guy at the bottom of the lineup and all that stuff, maybe give him more opportunities to draw walks, and especially with Tatis, like you just said, maybe he gets more fastballs with the game flow thing that we always talk about. I just don't think that there's anybody that makes sense to swap in Xander Bogaerts' steed. I will say, though, and I didn't expect to be talking about Xander Bogaerts a lot in this first segment, I will say I would be a fan of just moving him around a little bit more. I don't know where. This would be up to Mike Schilt, and I trust Mike Schilt implicitly. But I do think that it would be it's not an idea that should be dismissed, the idea of moving Xander Bogaerts a little bit in the lineup. Like, I understand today was different. Gavin Sheets was batting below him. In fairness, that is because of there being a lefty on the mound in the case of Yusei Kikuchi, right? So that wasn't a good matchup for Gavin Sheets. But in general, I'm just not totally sure who you would bring up there instead. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm at with it, but I don't hate the idea. But folks, we're not done talking about this game. We got to talk more about this game. We got to talk a little bit more about the rest of the Padres offense, and especially the bullpen, because Lord knows, I imagine a lot of y'all are wondering, Javi, what are you doing? You got to talk about this bullpen because you told us it was great. And folks, I still believe that. But we're going to talk about whether or not I'm adjusting my vibes the same way I adjusted my haircut if you're watching on the YouTube. So, without further ado, here's an ad from one of our sponsors. And that sponsor, folks, is our good friends over at FanDuel. You know them, you love them, and let me tell you, with the NBA playoffs in full swing and every night delivering highlight-worthy performances, Jalen Brunson, you beautiful soul. My man. Shouts to one of my best friends, Noah. Big long-time Knicks fan. He's happy, and I've been bandwagoning with him too. But whatever it is, major momentum shifts and can't miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, the Anthony Edwards of the world, even Julius Randle on that Timberwolves team, the Pacers as a whole, right? There's all sorts of stuff, and there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-offs and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Win real big, folks. Let me tell you, it's great. Which players are showing up to the biggest moments? You can predict that. And also, let me tell you, they got a great deal here. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Sounds pretty good, right? So make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving. Maybe not thriving. We're dying and vibing, let me tell you, after last night's game. As I was getting into, we just talked a bunch about Xander Bogaerts and whether or not they should move him down. Let's get back into the case of the game. Because again, the Padres did have some good scoring in this game, right? Jackson Merrill, bottom of the third, he drives in a run because of course he does. Bashes the ball. Not bashes the ball, but sneaks the ball down the right field line past the first baseman. That guy, what I love about Jackson Merrill too is always just like, he does have that like amazing batted contact and baseball rat, edge to him. And I really do think that he's been pretty good at just putting the ball where it needs to go at the right time. And you saw that with that single of his. And also, Xander Bogaerts, he reaches on Yusei Kikuchi's throwing error, which is the reason I was criticizing him a little bit in the first segment, because yes, he did get a sac fly in this game, which is great. He also had the opportunity to extend the Padres lead, or not even extend the lead, get them in front officially after Merrill's hit, and he just hits a grounder. It was spiked onto the ground. And if not for Yusei Kikuchi's error, Yusei Kikuchi, pretty good game, by the way. 6 innings, 4 runs, but only 2 earned on 2 walks, 4 Ks. One of the weirdest signings of the entire offseason, by the way, was this signing for the Angels. Like, a team that seems hell-bent on winning 72 games every year. I don't know why. They're just like, nope, we're not going to tank. We're always going to keep signing players so that way we reach 72 wins. I don't understand it. But with the Padres, they just did not show up big time against Yusei Kikuchi, and I think this has been a trend of problems for the Padres this year, which is they are really struggling against lefties big time, this team, and I think that is a big struggle. We talk about Tatis actually on Thursday, and hilariously enough, Tatis ends up hitting a home run in this one in the bottom of the 5th inning, so he finally did do well off of a lefty, but it's still really funny that this team has just, kind of struggled at times against them. I don't know if it's as egregious as it has been in the past in certain situations, and there are some players on this team that have always struggled a little bit against lefties. Jake Cronenworth a little bit, Luis Arraez a little bit, but in general, man, you got to do better against someone like Yusei Kikuchi, especially at home, especially with all the vibes, sellout crowd again, and they weren't able to do it. Xander Bogaerts, like I said, after the sac fly, and what also happened in this game was some great defensive plays. One from Manny Machado that was awesome, a really great snag at third. I've mentioned this before, but I really don't think you should trust the baseball savant, at least right now, numbers on Manny Machado's defensive metrics. I just don't fully trust them. I've been watching him all year, and maybe I'm missing something with the range factor, but to me, I've seen him make so many incredible throws, so many incredible stops, basically all year, that I feel like the advanced statistics are just not doing him justice, right? I've actually had some other people who've agreed with me on this. And granted, they're not horrible, right? -3 outs above average is not horrible. It's not good, but it's not horrible. And he is positive in defensive run saves. So maybe it's one of those things where his range has not been very good and it's not showing. On someone who's just watching the broadcast, it's better to see in person, but he's made so many incredible plays all year, and I think deserves credit for that. And then Jackson Merrill making 2 diving catches in this game. 2 diving catches in this game. One of them preserving the lead late in the game, by the way, like a really clutch play. He jumps up, he's fired up. The thing about Jackson Merrill that has made him so beloved is not just that he's good, but how much of to borrow a term I just used before, how much of a baseball rat he is, right? This is a guy who just it's infectious how hyped he is on stuff, right? 890 expected batting average for the line out from Nolan Schanuel. There was a flyout from Matthew Lugo that had an 890 expected batting average as well. Just incredible, incredible stuff. Hey, even Yohan Moncada, the Padres played some good defense in this game. Yohan Moncada had a batting average expected of 690 in this game, right? Like, there were points in which the Padres got a little bit lucky in some cases, but more importantly, they just made some great defensive plays. 2 from Merrill and then 1 from Manny Machado. Great stuff. We love Jackson Merrill. And the fact that you had the Tatis home run, you had the Jackson Merrill single to bring them back into it. You had the weird, it's not good that this is how he got on base, but even the weird Xander Bogaerts, when Yusei Kikuchi airmailed the throw at first base. Even that was kind of the hype is around this game. You were so excited. And coming off a game in which they weren't able to complete the sweep against the Rockies. And don't get me wrong, it's fine. I'm not complaining too much about that series. It just stinks for you to start off and then you bring in Robert Suarez. I told you, one of my best friends is at the game last night. He's hyped. He sent me the video of, the crazy closer entrance and whatnot. And Robert Suarez comes into the game and has about as bad a bullpen appearance that this Padres team, and combined with Alec Jacob, who we'll get to in a second, probably the worst Padres bullpen moments, I'm going to say, since last year early on against the Rockies. I don't know if you guys remember that game, but they had like a 6-run lead or so, and the bullpen completely collapsed. I believe Yuki Matsui gave up some runs. I believe Enyel De Los Santos gave up some runs. It was bad, and that's what happens here, in which Robert Suarez is just completely off. Completely, basically from the very beginning, right? Just cannot throw strikes. Robert Suarez walks at one point 4 batters in a row, including walking a batter in from third base with the bases loaded. He started off that bat like 3-1 or 3-0. Like, everyone was just like, what is going on with this guy? And look, I'm a big, believer, I guess is the right word. I always talk about how guys are going to hit regressions. Robert Suarez had a 0.51 ERA heading into this. He left the game with a 3 ERA. He only gets 1 out in this one. But it is still massively unfortunate the way that this went down. And it's fair to start talking about the Padres bullpen, because not only do they have to take Robert Suarez out of this game, it's 5-5. He walked in the tying run. That was unfortunate, right? And by the way, good batting by the Angels in some ways, because I remember last year there were some times where we're like, Manny, why are you swinging on the first pitch? This guy can't throw a strike. The Angels basically dared Robert Suarez to try and throw some strikes, and he couldn't, and he walked in runs. And then Alec Jacob comes in and was arguably even worse, giving up a grand slam, a hanging pitch, by the way, in this game. A hanging friggin' pitch in this game, off speed to a guy like Taylor Ward, which is one of the only players in this lineup that you don't want to do that, right? Like, that is just not what you want to do. A sweeper that only went 72 miles per hour, that was horrible, right? The drop was not enough, and it hung basically right in the middle. And Taylor Ward took it deep. He launched it, grand slam, completely putting the Padres out of reach. That was arguably even more frustrating than Suarez. Because at least Suarez, you could be like, all right, well, he was due, like I said. And for Alec Jacob to come in, and again, it's hard with the bases loaded, I understand that, but this is like the one batter that you didn't want to make that mistake to. I know he hasn't been that great this year, Taylor Ward, but in general, he's been capable of hitting home runs before. Man, really, really rough. Because I had a feeling. My friend actually texted me. He was like, this is aura farming on the Padres' part to let them tie the game just so Tatis can walk the game off the next inning. And I was actually like, it's okay. I don't know about you guys. When Alec Jacob came in, I was like, okay, we'll end the inning here and then we'll be fine. We're going to walk this game off. Couldn't ask for a better start to my week. And instead, Alec Jacob made sure that there was no hope for that to happen. It was rough. If there is something positive to take away from this, there's 2 things. Number one is just the Padres bullpen has been so kind of broken for the first month of the season that it's basically why they are where they're at. So it's fair to be like, hey, this was bound to happen, right? But even still, you start to worry. You start to get a little bit freaked out. Well, I have a couple more points I want to make about that before we totally raise the, DEFCON 4 alarm. in just a second, guys. But first, a few words from our sponsors. And just like that, everybody, back into the winning moments of this year Locked On Padres podcast. Whew. Here's the other positive note, right? We already talked about, regression happens, it happens. But in fairness, the Padres bullpen has, at one point, by the way, not just the best in baseball, like by far the best in baseball. Through May 5th, they had a 1.68 ERA, which was the best in baseball, and now it's 3.25, which is the 7th best in baseball. And some of the teams ahead of them happen to be in the Padres division, the San Francisco Giants, at number 1 in Major League Baseball now with a 2.48 ERA. Again, we've talked about this on the show. I expected it to get a little bit worse, but for it to jump this much over the course of the last few days, whether it be Wandy Peralta, and that's the other thing, is it's been a mixture of everybody, not just this one Robert Suarez and Alec Jacob appearance. It's been a few guys that have been giving up runs for this team. You remember the Jason Adam moment? This has been a really bad stretch for the Padres bullpen. There's no way in about it. I mean, that Jason Adam thing, I basically talked about for an entire episode last week because I thought that pitch sequence was horrible. Why are you throwing 4 straight changeups to Trent Grisham? And specifically in the places where he could hit the game-tying home run. Just not great stuff from this Padres bullpen. I will say that last night, the other positive is there was a sequence of events that needed to occur for this to go well for the Angels. For one, for Robert Suarez to completely forget how to throw a strike. And it was actually pretty impressive how he was missing completely off the plate, which to me tells me this is just one of those crazy bad nights, right? I actually would prefer something like this instead of you're just getting absolutely hammered. Because that's what I thought was going to happen with Robert Suarez. I thought his moment would be like he walks a guy and then gives up an absolute nuke home run to tie the game. Because if you look at his advanced peripherals this year, his hard hit stuff is some of the worst in baseball. Robert Suarez, like when guys make contact with, which granted is not all that often, especially with the fastball changeup combination, but in average exit velocity, he's in the 6th percentile, and ground ball rate 6th percentile, and barrel rate 10th percentile. Like he gets hit pretty hard, right? Like he gets hit pretty hard. All right, he has some moments where he's giving up some nukes. You know what I mean? Or at least that's what I thought what was going to happen. But more than that, they had a confluence of events. Not only did you have all the walks there, which was super out of character. You had Jake Cronenworth barely missing a double play in this game, right? Diving for the ball, barely missing it. Then you had Tatis barely missing a catch, which we haven't talked about, right? It ended up being a foul ball, but it was a pop-up. If that happens, do the Padres get out of it? If the Cronenworth thing goes well, do the Padres get out of it? And then lastly, Diaz barely misses a foul tip in this game. Right? Like if he caught the ball, it would have been a strikeout. I'm just throwing that out there. And then, by the way, the crowd roared when it looked like they got the strikeout of Yohan Moncada, by the way. Yohan Moncada trying to help the Padres back into this game, by the way. Like swinging at a bunch of pitches outside the zone. And for them to just for them to still mess it up is, I think, why it was such a dreadful moment, I think, for Padres fans everywhere. I don't have any easy solutions. I don't have any easy retorts to all this. I just think that it's fair to say, look, they literally are the reason we kept winning so many games. The offense wasn't showing up. Hopefully they can do better. We're going to see from Dylan Cease tonight if he can give them a great start, at least similar to Michael King's. They really are going to need that because this bullpen has really lost a lot of trust as of late. Jason Adam, Yuki Matsui's given up a couple runs at points, if I'm not mistaken. You had the Robert Suarez last night. Alec Jacob has had some bad moments. This pen has just really been getting beaten up lately. And it makes me worried. Even Sean Reynolds, who was supposed to be reinforcements, he came in and he didn't look the same as what the guy that we saw last year. The stuff was not the same. Wandy Peralta, he hasn't been very good. But again, this is the ebbs and flows of a season. This is just what happens sometimes. If the Padres were to win these next 2 games, and the bullpen is good, and then if they are to win 2 out of 3 against Seattle, no one's going to complain. So it's not time to raise the alarm, but it is fair to start asking ourselves, like, dang, like, we sure this bullpen is going to be all that great? And frankly, this is why you don't want to trade, even though you have an excess in resources in one area, which is the bullpen. And for this Padres team, maybe you don't want to trade these guys. I know Abdil, listener of the show, reached out saying, like, should they give up a reliever and try and get a good bat that they could need? Not something I would dismiss, but sometimes you double down on your strengths. And this Padres team, we're going to have to keep and see it. But all in all, I do not think Robert Suarez. I just think that the addition of his changeup this year means something. And while I've been getting a lot of flack for my preseason prediction that he wouldn't be very good, even if that happens, I still believe in Yuki Matsui. I still believe in Jason Adam. I still love Jeremiah Estrada. I think Sean Reynolds, it was still just one outing, right? There's so many guys in this pen that I like, and I think that they can put it together. Are they going to be the best in baseball? Are they going to be Cleveland Guardians from last year, where they quite literally, were only good last year because their bullpen was historic, right? I don't think that that's what we're looking at. I think that the Padres will be fine. And if things don't get better, last year's Padres bullpen was much less talented, and AJ Preller was able to fix it. If there's one aspect of your team, batting average, on base, home runs, starting pitching, defense, whatever, the easiest thing to replace, I think, at the trade deadline is the bullpen. So if this continues, if this is as the very unbiased Dodgers fan who commented for the show on Monday, is right that the Padres bullpen has been smoke and mirrors, I will take that over the rest of the team. That's okay. You can fix that. That is my take. But I'd be lying to you if I said that wasn't a devastating loss for the Padres. Easily the worst loss of the season and the worst bullpen appearance since early last year against the Rockies. So hopefully they do better going forward. They're not going to have Suarez tonight because Suarez had to pitch a lot of pitches. So they are going to need the offense to really show up. They're going to need a great start from Dylan Cease. Otherwise, we're looking into some Padres misery for a little bit. But we'll have to see. Some last couple things. Ethan Salas. Because we didn't have enough bad news, Ethan Salas will miss a couple months with a back injury. This happened yesterday. It actually broke out like somewhat in the middle of the game, by the way, which was very like, okay, so you just want us to like totally just suffer right now? Like we're just getting total misery. From MLB.com, the organization's number 2 prospect and MLB Pipeline's number 29 overall. Salas has been out of the lineup since mid-April, and let me tell you, they are not optimistic about his injury. This is going to be a 2-month injury, according to AJ Preller, putting his expected return at some point in July. It's a stress reaction in his lower back. Salas has gotten hurt a couple times, and same thing with Leody DeVries. And look, I don't think that this is something that's going to affect the Padres for this year. It's just really unfortunate because of his upside and his work behind the plate defensively. Like, this is still a big guy. But don't get me wrong, he still has struggled. He hit just 206 with a 599 OPS at high A last year. So I don't think this is a guy that was necessarily going to save the Padres season, right? But hey, as the article mentions, a 20-year-old Fernando Tatis Jr. also endured a stress reaction in his back, ending his 2019 rookie season mid-August, and he hasn't felt the effects of that injury since. So, like, this isn't something that hopefully will not affect him. This hopefully will not affect him long-term, and I don't think it will. I'm really optimistic about him, and we'll see how this Padres team operates for the rest of the year. We're going to have to see if the Campusano hive it's like Wolverine. It keeps regenerating when you don't expect it. It's like Deadpool. It just can't kill it. I imagine he'll get like one more chance this year. But again, I talked about a bold prediction before the season that they'd call up Salas out of just being panicked. But that probably might not happen now because he's injured. They're not going to do that. They're not that crazy. Last thing I want to mention before we close out today's show, Taylor Ward and Jorge Soler. Just guys to keep an eye on for this team. They're going to be trade targets, I think, for a while. Now, I will say, in the case of Taylor Ward, he is owed $16 million, and it would last through next year as well. So that would cost a little bit more for the Padres in terms of what they would have to give up for a return. It is the Angels, so I'm optimistic that you could totally get it for like nothing. But even still, it's one more year and the salary. Will that be something that is okay for the Padres' plans? But career-wise, he's been a pretty decent player overall. Right? Like, this is a guy who, in his career, has been a very solid player, and he has a career 129 WRC plus against lefties. This year, he's not hitting against lefties, but I don't think that's going to continue. He's not going to be a 200, 180 batting average guy against lefties. I just think that he could do a lot better. And then also with Taylor Ward as well for the Angels, who hit the grand slam last night. He's also been a player that has done very well against lefties. So, that's my point. What have I been talking about all year? One of the big questions is going to be whether or not they can go out and get themselves a player that can hit lefties, the other side of the platoon with Gavin Sheets. And I think that you could see Taylor Ward or Jorge Soler. I think that it makes sense. Taylor Ward is going to have a lot of interest because of the fact that he doesn't have a big contract, right? He's actually in arbitration right now. So there's going to be a lot more desire, a lot more competition from other teams. But lefties in his lifetime, 121 WRC plus. Like, he hits them well. I really do think it would behoove the Padres to take the approach that they had in 2023, which is just shoring up some of the lineup depth and just hoping things go well from there, because there's not much else you can do. I'm not a fan of the whole attach a prospect to Bogarts and ship him off somewhere. I'm just not a fan of that. You got to give it a little bit more time. There are other players in baseball that look dead that bounced back. I'm not saying that they're the same situation that Bogarts is, especially with his wrist, but he is a player that, look at George Springer. Just to give you an example. Again, completely different player, but that guy looked like he was done. Right? George Springer looked like he was absolutely cooked heading into this year. And while the Blue Jays still have a lot of problems, George Springer is not one of them, and they gave him a big deal too. And he has bounced back in a major, major way for the Blue Jays this year. He actually leads them in WAR this season after last year having a 95 WRC plus. The year before that, he had 104. Everything looked downhill. Now he's got a 163, and all of the betting metrics are great. Carlos Correa looked like injured goods that first year of the big extension with the Minnesota Twins. Right? 95 WRC plus that season. He played 135 games. That was bad. Then he bounced back the very next year with a 155. So, it could totally get better. I think you just have to. Not because you want to, but you got to give him a little bit more chance, because you have to. You just have to. Not that you want to, but that's just kind of the situation we're running into. So, yeah, that's it, everybody, for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Remember to follow me on Twitter /X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO. I'll see you all next time, because tomorrow we're doing one more game recap. Then, just to let you know for the rest of the week, we got biggest surprises of the season on Thursday. That was a fun episode. I'm not changing it, even with Robert Suarez getting blown up. And then Friday, we're doing a crossover with Ty Dan Gonzalez of Locked On Mariners. But until next time, stay safe, and of course, stay faithful. My Friday faithful homies, take care.